Hello and welcome back to the Plastering podcast with me, Stu Roberts. Spreads this evening, I've got a brand new series to share with you called Stronger on the Tools, as you can see on this image that I'm sharing with you. And I've got a special guest by the name of Mr. John Lockyear. John's going to be joining me this evening, and he's going to be talking about his brand new coaching program, Brick Dust and Barbells. Okay. You've probably seen him share a few bits and pieces into Trowel Talk in regards to nutrition, fitness, strength, mindset, all the stuff that we tend to neglect as plasterers. Okay. He's someone really interesting joining me because this is a guy that knows exactly what it's like to graft hard on site. He knows what happens when your body starts telling you it's had enough. And again, he's the founder of Brick Dust and Barbells, a brand new coaching program designed especially for plasterers over 40. Although this information is going to help anybody who's a spread, anybody that's on the tools and who's feeling it. The body's feeling it. Okay. If you want to feel fitter, stronger, sharper, both on and off the tools, and this is going to be for you tonight's episode. John Lockyear isn't just talking theory here, guys, as well. Okay, he's an expert in sleep, nutrition, hydration, strength training, and he's already helping a fair few lads inside his community group. He's helping them to make some simple changes that's going to give them more energy, less pain, and a body that can actually keep up with the demands of being a spread. How many times have you seen on Trowel Talk spreads complaining about rotor cuff injuries, tennis elbow, carpal tunnel, back problems? I know that I've personally had many of these issues myself as I've crept into my 40s. I'm 42 now. Many of the problems that John speaks about on his podcast, I've actually experienced, and it was like he was talking to me in a lot of these episodes. So let's bring John on, and I can hit him with the first question. Good evening, John. How are you, brother? You keeping well?
Yeah, all right, Stu. Yeah, not too bad, mate. How are you? Doing all right?
Superb, mate. I'm very excited to have you on. I really appreciate your time. I was just giving you a bit of a big up there, mate, and an introduction, talking about your podcast. You cover a lot of ground on this podcast, and like I say, it resonates with me, and I know that it's going to resonate with a lot of plasterers who are no spring chicken, let's say. They're not 22 anymore. They can't get away with caning 4 Red Bulls and a sausage roll and thinking that's going to power them through on an 8-bag set. So yes, we need to start maybe looking at some better strategies when it comes to our health, our nutrition, our fitness. But I want to hit you with the first question this evening, if that's okay, John. Talk about the turning point that you made that made you realise plasterers over 40 need help when it comes to their health and performance. What was the turning point for you?
Yeah, so I think, firstly, I've been training since I was 14. So I've always had an interest in health, fitness from a really early age. So where that translates today, I guess, is with plastering. I kind of treat plastering like a sport. That's how I've always approached it. And I kind of, when I'm plastering, let's say, and I'm doing all of the right things that I've extrapolated from when I was 14 to like even now when I'm 43, even 3 or 4 years ago, I was waking up just feeling shit all the time, like no energy, just really low, in a dark place some days. And I used to say to myself, like, why am I always tired? I'm tired of being tired. And that kind of sent me on this rabbit hole kind of journey, if you like, this spiral of just researching and trying to unpack and understand how we work on kind of a cellular level, particularly myself. Yep. So I guess the turning point for me is, and I think this happens with everybody, people that are overweight or they're tired or, you know, they're just sick and tired of a particular thing. And when you hit that moment, then you kind of say to yourself, you put a flag in the ground and start sort of changing your life. And for me, as I said, as a spread, I was completely depleted of energy. And it's so horrible to be in that place when you wake up on, say, a Monday morning and you know you've got a plasterer, say a 25 metre square ceiling and all the walls, and they're 2.7 high, and you've literally got nothing in the tank, like zero. And even worse still, not having an answer to that. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of the answers, which they even were for me, were let's get a can of Red Bull, let's do the coffee first thing in the morning. And yeah, I guess going back maybe several years ago, that's kind of the turning point for me. I was like, this is enough. I need to change my life because I can't continue to live like this.
That makes a lot of sense, mate. Do you think plasterers are putting themselves last? Because a lot of the stuff, we see it all through the media. We kind of know the common sense stuff, drop the carbs, drink more water, eat protein, the common sense stuff, eat more vegetables, etc. So we kind of know what we need to be doing. Why do you think plasterers often put themselves last when it comes to health? How do you challenge that mindset when you work with people?
Well, I guess it's a great question. So, like there's 2 types of tradesmen, right? And we both know these tradesmen. I've got the 2 types of tradesmen. We all own a van, right? There's a type of tradesman, like my neighbour, he's a painter and decorator, Brian. That van is absolutely spotless. He's out there every week hoovering it, cleaning it. It's brand new. It needs a new wiper. It gets a new wiper. But then you get the other tradesman that, there's McDonald's breakfasts all over the kind of the floor. It's covered in crap. They never change the oil. They never do anything with it. They never service it. They just run it into the ground.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like these 2 mentalities of people, like what's the mentality between those 2? Like, what is making them make their choices? And I still don't have the answer for that. And again, like because I've been around the construction industry for a long time, builders and plumbers and plasterers or whatever it may be, pretty much all of them don't look after themselves. They don't care. And when they see me and I'm talking like, what are you doing tomorrow, John? And I'm like, I'm doing a 10K run. They're like, oh, piss off. We're going down the pub. It's like, oh, okay. Like, do you not think that your body is important? And like, it's really difficult because you don't want to come off too preachy. So I think to challenge the mindset, I wouldn't say I'd try to challenge the mindset. I don't think you're ever going to change anyone's mind by talking and trying to convince someone. For me, I guess the whole premise of all of this, as I've said to you before, Stuart, I mean, we've obviously spoken offline. It's probably about in July, a good friend of mine passed away. He's 52 and he didn't want to pass away. And what I mean by that is he had all of the trinkets. By definition, he was successful from a financial point of view. But his lifestyle wasn't good. It wasn't bad either, but he liked the drink, he liked the booze, he was always in the pub. He believed like networking was really important in the pubs and so on. And basically, yeah, he died at 52. And where I'm going with that is that same week, I heard that 2 other friends of mine had committed suicide. So, as depressing as that sounds, this is why Brick Dust and Barbells is born, because I was literally sitting outside a job in the van, and my mate had passed away the day before, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on out there? I'm sorry, I don't know if I can swear on here.
Of course you can, mate. We're all spreads. We've all heard it before.
Yeah, so I was kind of like saying to myself, what is going on? Like, people need help. And I guess that the problem with a lot of people is they feel on their own. Like the chemistry in our brain, if we're sort of drinking beer and we're not getting access to sleep and we're not getting access to good rest and all that sort of stuff, the chemistry in our brain can kind of just go off balance, and we get all of these thoughts, low energy and so on. And it's a really shitty place to be. So I guess I don't really try to challenge anyone in a sense of like drink this electrolyte or do this press up or lift this barbell up with your little toe or whatever it is, because I don't think anyone's going to change their mind. Just like that analogy I give with a van. My mate, Ricky, his van blew up maybe about several months ago now. But I said to him, like, when did you last change the oil on that van? He went, I haven't.
Exactly.
I'm like, well, what do you expect? And it's the same with spreads, particularly because I work with a lot of spreads. Like my mate Nathan, for argument's sake, he's falling to bits. Nathan, if you're watching this, I love you, brother. But his wrist is gone, his shoulder's gone. He openly say he can't plaster ceilings. He turned 40 Saturday. My mate Mark Webb, who I went to school with, he's been plastering 20 years. He's having acupuncture every 10 seconds. But again, he's still on this all the time. And I'm like, and they're pissing and moaning that you've got no energy and they're breaking down and all this sort of shit. But then you're kind of like, well, mate, like, here's an electrolyte. Like, oh, what are you going on about? So I guess that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question. But
no, that was a brilliant answer.
And that's, again, why Brick Dust and Barbells is out there, because I just thought, well, we'll see what happens. And in all honesty, Stuart, as you know, and I've said offline, I don't know how successful it's going to be, because I know the mentality of tradesmen out there. It's kind of, and I think it's a human nature thing in whereby we're set in our ways. But I think if we have the aptitude to kind of realize, look, first we make our habits, and then our habits make us.
100%.
Yeah.
We spoke briefly just before we come on air. Most of you know, sadly, we lost the hitman this week, guys. We lost the legend Ricky Hatton, and he was an absolute gent, and everyone's gutted about this. But it kind of got me and John just touching, and this wasn't planned, this question, guys, but I think it's important just to mention the link between your physical health and your mental health. John's just mentioned there is one of his good friends sadly took his own life, and although it's not been publicly announced, I think most of us know what happened to Ricky, although that needs to be confirmed. John, why aren't people putting two and two together? So if they're feeling low mood, they might even be, dread to say it, suicidal, and they've just got absolutely nothing in the tank, and they're just so low. What sort of impact would the next question we're going to come on to is building a body that lasts, but just to merge into that question, what sort of impact would radically changing their diet and their physical machine, what sort of impact would that have on somebody that is feeling really low and depressed?
Yeah, so firstly, you're talking about the mind and the body, okay? So the reality is if that you don't have a strong body, you don't have a strong mind. So that's the first place I would start. You can't go around it the other way. So there's an example. If you feel shit, you can't just sit in a room and go, do you know what, I'm going to think myself better. It doesn't work like that. So as an example, if you're feeling really shit, if you go out for a walk and get a load of fresh air, you're naturally going to feel better. Or you run towards the car, you just have these endorphins that kind of hit you. So firstly, having a strong body is going to affect the mind. So that's the first thing. The thing as well is, like, tiredness and depletion are real things, and they can kind of be mistaken for depression and sometimes. So it's quite a lonely place to be. Like the thing with Ricky Hatton, as we were saying off air when we was talking, like with Ricky Hatton, by definition, that guy was super successful. He had all the accolades. He was, Britain's treasure, if you like. Very popular guy, interviewing left, right, and centre. And subsequently, he was quite open about how he felt about the world, life, people, and his own internal struggles. So I think as well from that, when I used to watch Ricky, even in the early days, and subsequently I have met Ricky at Bethnal Green once upon a time. That's another conversation, which I won't go off on a tangent. I'll stick to the subject. But with Ricky, I think that he used to say off air, like when he wasn't training or bouting, he used to just go and hit the Guinnesses and hit the chip butties, and that was his diet. So the trouble with that is that kind of diet, what that does is, firstly, it's going to dehydrate you. It's not going to give you this strong body. So I guess with dehydration, just touching on that, because it's such an important topic, it's so important. When we feel tired and depressed and low, chances are we're very dehydrated. A lot. And because dehydration shows up as tiredness, brain fog, the world is ending, I've got no motivation. And subsequently, what we do is we'll perk ourselves up with a coffee when we feel like that. But what that does is it actually makes the problem worse. And I could go into why.
Well, we're going to come on to, like I say, we're going to come on to hydration. So I don't want you to give all the tips out just yet, because I know that we're coming on to hydration and the importance of hydration. But a quote comes to mind that you talk about a lot, and I think it's if you don't feel well, you can't do well. Is that right? Have I said that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant, and it's 100% true. If you don't feel well, you can't do well. I love that. I'm just going to hit the chat. I can see that we've got a handful of spreads that have joined us this evening. Much appreciated, boys. I'm sure you're resonating with a lot of the stuff that John's talking about this evening, because most of us are over 40. Most of us have had injuries, or maybe we've got chronic injuries now. You know, maybe this is you, where you are running on empty. You are suffering with low mood on the jobs, and you are in pain, you are popping ibuprofen, and maybe some of the tips and strategies that John is offering down this evening could turn things around for you. So good evening, Mark Neeson. Thanks for jumping on, brother. Appreciate it. Good evening, Richard Brooks. I hope you're keeping well. I know you've been going through a difficult period at the moment. I hope you're keeping well, brother, and thoughts are with you. Good evening, Mike Smart. Good evening, John Turnbull. And good evening, Eric de Valmency. Eric de Valmency is big on fitness, John, and somebody who you should connect with. He's into his body weight training.
Okay.
You might have seen some of the content that he used to share. This is going back a few years now. I'm sure he keeps his hand in. But yeah, he was very, very fanatical on body weight training. He got absolutely shredded at one point. And we did a chat about that and touched on it, although not quite to the level that me and you were going to talk in terms of sleep and wearables and all this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So Eric de Valmency is another guy that will find this chat extremely helpful. We've got some more people inside John's group and Trowel Talk and the YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I can't read all these comments out, guys, but I will try and get to them at some point during this chat with John. I don't want to leave John high and dry for too long.
Because I'll go.
Yeah, he might go on strike and walk off. All right then, John. Building a body that lasts. You touched on, you kind of used the analogy of the work van on your podcast. You talk about the warning light, and I just wanted you to touch on that for the spreads listening. Could you elaborate on what you mean when you use the analogy of the work van, and how we wouldn't ignore a problem with the van, but we'll ignore our own body and our own health?
Yeah. So firstly, where I'll start with that, the analogy with the van, and again, I talk about this in the podcast, is that you wouldn't buy a van or a car without a dashboard. That would be insane, right? Because you want to know how much fuel is in your van. You want to know if you've not got enough oil in your van. You want to know if the engine warning light comes on, what's going on with your van. But what we do as people is we don't know what's going on inside our own bodies. We're kind of just guessing it. So where I'm going with that, this is probably a nice segue, and I know it's probably one of your questions about wearables. But for me, a wearable is the dashboard and my body is the engine. I know exactly what's going on inside my body. So when we are tackling anything with regards to training or plastering or anything physical, we really want to try and understand what's going on inside our body. And let me give you an example. So it fascinates me how personal trainers don't talk about HRV. And what HRV is, in a nutshell, is basically the fuel gauge for your central nervous system, your CNS.
Right.
So the analogy, just to answer your question, with the van and the wearable, okay, if you don't know what's going on inside your body, like from a nervous system point of view, your central nervous system, you can't really make smart choices. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, and in the nervous system, there's two sides to the nervous system. You've got the parasympathetic and you've got the sympathetic. So the parasympathetic is what we call the rest and digest. And the sympathetic is the fight or flight. So the analogy that I use with the van, okay, if your warning light comes on in your van that you've got no oil, you don't just continue and driving the van down the motorway at 80 miles an hour and go, oh, that'd be all right. At that point, you're like, do you know what? We need to get some oil. It's the same with your central nervous system. It's talking to you through your HRV. And with a wearable, you can track that. That's kind of like the engine warning light coming on to say, hang on a second, you need to back off from this. So where I'm going with that is with the dashboard and the van. If you don't have a dashboard on your van, it's like you wouldn't buy that van, right?
Sure.
So with your body and training, if you're a plasterer or whatever, how do you know if your body is breaking down or not? Because it's telling you signals through your HRV, through your heart rate. And we need to kind of understand it. So the answer to your question there, I guess, is with regards to the van analogy, I use that because tradesmen can kind of relate to it and kind of hope I get the message across how important it is to say have a wearable.
100%. And we're going to come on to the wearables. I know you've got a lot of information on the wearables that we'll try and shoehorn in. D. Ayres has just jumped in off YouTube. He says that he's an ex-spread turned strength and conditioning coach. A lot of plasterers I've worked with, their diet is atrocious. They never eat. He says healthy body, healthy mind, a good baseline of physical hygiene. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. So again, and this is the thing, like strength and conditioning, right? So there's a lot of personal trainers out there. I'm not a personal trainer. I just want to make that clear from the bat. I think it's more around health and performance. That's kind of what I start with. So without exception, I haven't met or spoke with a personal trainer that talks about HRV, heart rate variability. That's so important because what heart rate variability is the state of our nervous system. And that is so important. And that's affected with sleep, beer, coffee, nutrition. I mean, it's a theory of mine, and I don't know how accurate this is, but personal trainers don't want to talk about HRV because if, let's say they had a client that turns up in the morning and they've got like a HIIT circuit plan for them or a heavy strength weight conditioning circuit for them, and their HRV is cooked, their nervous system is cooked, like they can't just go, right, you've got to do this session because they know that they should be resting.
Right.
So
interesting.
Yeah, just going off on a bit of a tangent there.
No, I'm excited to unpack the wearable question because I'm going to order one of these, by the way. I've just not had a minute, and I know that the first thing you advise your members to do if they're interested in working with yourself, like I am, I know the first thing you do is say, listen, you have to get a wearable. So I'm excited to come on to that question. But Eric Devalmancy says, I take good care of my body, but not the van. Yeah, I think most spreads are the other way around. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. I want to talk to you just briefly because I'm sharing an image on the screen, and this is something from your content and your YouTube channel and your website. I think you call it the life triangle. Could you explain what this is and what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. So life, by definition, is energy. And energy is life. So as an example, if you're dead, you've got no energy. Okay. The opposite of being dead is alive, aka life. So life consists of three things in my mind. So rest, training, nutrition. So I guess for me, without these three things, without these three pillars, you're going to struggle. You're not going to have energy, aka life. So what I would say is that the first they're all very important, but if we've got to start with any of those, I would say rest is the most underrated and unexplored subject spoken about on the internet, and particularly within sort of the tradesman plasterers kind of world, because, you know, particularly in the West, tradesmen, men and women, it's kind of like we have this mentality in the West. It's like balls to the wall, make your eyes bleed, work 7 days a week, have no rest, and if you do, you're a pussy. It's kind of that sort of mentality. Well, that is kind of like short-term gain for long-term pain. It doesn't work. And when we're not getting rest, then it shows up in us, such as like joint pain, back pain. We're moody all the time, etc. So rest is really important. And within that kind of quadrant of rest, there's kind of a number of different pillars that I sort of spin off from that. But probably the most important one is sleep.
Right.
And sleep, I feel, is the most abstract thing to people. And let me give you an example. I was chatting with someone today, a painter and decorator, and he said to me, I sleep loads. I said, oh, great. That's brilliant. I said, how many stages of sleep are there? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you say you sleep loads. He's like, yeah, I sleep. And then when I wake up, I feel like I've had no sleep. So the reason I say that is because sleep is broken down into 4 sections. There's 4 stages to sleep. There's REM sleep and there's deep sleep. There's light sleep and awake. There's 4 stages. And this comes into rest, into this life triangle. This is so important. So we got to protect sleep like it's our job. Sleep is so important. It's so, so important. So specifically with sleep, with spreads, or any trade for that matter, we need access, particularly out of all of those 4 stages, to deep sleep. We need access to that, because in deep sleep, we get access to growth hormone and we get access to testosterone. Those 2 hormones are so important, specifically growth hormone, or GH. And what growth hormone basically does is kind of like the fountain of youth. That hormone is so important. If you break a bone, it's growth hormone that repairs it. If you are going to the gym and you're ripping muscle fibers, it's growth hormone that fixes it. If you have got a bad back, you've slipped a disc, well, maybe not slip a disc, but you've pulled a muscle, growth hormone is what replaces it, or heals you.
Can I jump in, John?
Yeah.
Sorry. I just wanted you to unpack this a little bit for me, because I noticed that you spoke about testosterone.
Yes.
On one of your Facebook posts.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, men our age on socials are being pummeled and inundated with ads for testosterone. T. Are you low T? Are you low T? And you know, and you mentioned. Could you briefly touch on this issue and explain to the guys listening? You've just said how important it is and how it heals us and makes us stronger, etc. What can we do to boost our testosterone naturally and avoid these stupid magic pills that we keep seeing online?
Firstly, get lots of rest. That's one thing. So again, testosterone gets released when you're in a deep phase of your sleep. That's one way. And then I would say just like good food, exercise releases testosterone. You know, deadlifts, that releases testosterone. Like these things is kind of like common sense. I think in the West, you know, what we try to do is kind of like short-term gain for long-term pain. And what I mean by that is we kind of like with TRT as an example, it's like, just take this TRT and this will solve all of your problems. And everyone's like, oh, great. Like, I'll do that. I don't have to do sit-ups, or I don't have to sleep, and I can still drink beer. Just take this TRT and everything's going to be great. Because that's kind of how we're wired. We live in this society where it's go on Amazon, order this bookcase, it'll be delivered tomorrow. get a plasterer, they plaster your whole house next week. We live in this society that's kind of so quick. People are kind of less to examine, kind of, reading a book and try and understand the natural ways to increase testosterone. Another way, if you want to talk about testosterone, intermittent fasting is a great way to increase testosterone. So studies have shown, and go out there and do your own research with this, because I've looked into this and this is 100% accurate. If you fast for 17 hours, your body goes into a state called autophagy. And one of the benefits of that is you get an increase in testosterone by 1,300%.
Whoa.
1,300%. It's called autophagy. It was discovered, I believe, in the early noughties by a Japanese, I can't think of his name, but he got a Nobel Prize for it. So if you want to increase testosterone a natural way, a good way is to look into intermittent fasting.
Fantastic. I noticed that on one of these triangle, on one of the sides, you've got training, yes. And you just touched there on powerlifting weights. Yeah. I know that you were quite into this, obviously, and a question's come about, and you knew this question was coming, but plastering is already a workout in itself, okay? Yes. And some of the resistance that you've probably seen online, when you get the kind of fanatical spreads that they really look after themselves, they hit the gym every morning, and they eat right, they train right, and they're pretty tough guys, and they're dedicated to training, and they get a hard time from the spreads that don't train. And they say plastering is already a workout. Why should we start lifting weights and do this strength training alongside a day's graft? So could you explain the difference between, skimming a wall and maybe overboarding the ceiling compared to resistance training with weights and what it does, the differences? Yeah.
So again, I think a lot of this might be not common sense, but so I think it was yesterday I was overboarding the ceiling. It was only like about, I think it's 12 square meters. So it was only tiny. I was only using 1800 by 900 balls, or 12.5s. And I was literally throwing those things up like no one's business, just literally not even breaking a sweat. And I'm not exaggerating with that. And that's mainly because in the gym, I'm trained for that. So when I say trained, specifically military presses and shoulder presses. So compared to the guy that doesn't do shoulder presses, and I've worked with these spreads, I work with them, they are struggling. They might inside be like, oh no, this isn't a problem, kind of that inside, but for, like, genuinely, because I'm trained. And it's the same with like back problem. If you see me getting gear out of a bucket, I use my quads to get that gear out of the bucket. I'm not using the bottom part of my back. I'm not bending over it. I'm squatting. Like if you think of closing a car door with your bum, that's how I'm getting gear out of the bucket. And that's because my quads are trained. So I guess the answer to your question, the benefit of training is tenfold. And anyone that does training, that say listening to this or watching this, they will know that firsthand. They will feel it. Even like, again, it was a bedroom that I was doing the day before last when I was overboarding the ceiling and spreading. And I was running up and down the stairs with ease. Again, didn't even break a sweat carrying these balls up the stairs. And that's because of all of the running I do, the 10Ks, the 5Ks, the squats that I'm doing in the gym, the goblet squats and all that sort of stuff. It's because I'm trained. And then the caveat to that as well is, these spreads that you talk about, they're like, oh, why are you training? We're lifting balls all day. That's just ignorance, in my opinion.
I think they must assume that you're going to sort of wear out and you've got a limited use of your muscles. But what you're saying is, and I suppose some of it is common sense, is that you're strengthening those muscles and you're also strengthening different muscle groups. So it's making your job on the tools easier. It's making the job lighter. It's making it so you don't feel it as much.
Yeah. So today, again, I was in the gym this morning and I was doing they're called farmer's carries. So I was getting these big the kettlebells, just doing these farmer carries for like 20 meters 3 sets. And when I'm carrying them, I'm thinking of like, lifting plaster balls, carrying buckets, carrying bags of gear. That's kind of like my mentality as I'm walking around the gym doing these farms carries. That's kind of how I'm thinking. And that does carry over to the job 100%. And again, the benefit of that for me is like I've been without my health. And if you're a self-employed spread, you literally, in every sense of the word, cannot afford to be off the tools because you've got a mortgage and a car and petrol to pay for. So the reason I'm looking after my body, like I look after my van, if my van blows up, I'm snookered. Like I can't earn money. I can't buy food. I can't it's the same with my body. If my body blows up, AKA my back goes or my shoulder goes, then I'm not going to be able to earn money. So that's kind of a massive motivator for me. I want to make sure that my body is firing on all cylinders all the time. And that's why I was in the gym this morning, not just for vanity purposes, it's for functional purposes.
Awesome. Could you give us a rough idea, just before we move on to, I want to dig into sleep hygiene a little bit more, if that's okay. But before we do so, could you give the spreads a rough idea of what your typical training regime might look like for you personally? So I know that you said you get up at 5 a.m. and crush your trainings out early doors. Is that right?
Yeah. So again, coming back to the triangle, we'll stick to this because again, you talk about me getting up at 5. I get up at 5 a.m. pretty much every day. And I go to bed the same time as well, because there's something called your circadian rhythm, and that helps you get access to REM sleep. So that's kind of on the rest side of the triangle. Going over to the training, my training consists of two types of training. So I do kind of my VO2 training, my cardiovascular system training, which consists of running and cycling predominantly, and then I'll be doing strength training and functional training in the gym. So, and then if I haven't got time to get in the gym, then what I'll be doing is circuits at home. Bird dogs, I don't know, pike press ups, goblet squats. I've got kettlebells here that I've bought, etc. So my training really consists of those two things, because as well, what I worked out, again, from looking at this, and I did share this in the Brick Dust and Barbells community today, and as I said at the beginning of this podcast or this episode, is that I treat plastering like a sport. So what I do is I monitor my heart rate, how many steps I'm taking, etc. when I'm plastering, because I treat that plastering like a sport, and I compare the numbers that I get from plastering, say doing one hit, compared to my zone 2 running, which is kind of like an endurance kind of run, if you like. Zone 2 is, what that means is you're kind of in between sort of 120 to 135 beats a minute.
Okay.
AKA you can run at a conversational pace. Now, where I'm going with that is with my training, when I'm training my cardiovascular system, I know that the running that I'm doing is carrying over into the plastering.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess my training is kind of deliberate because I'm on the tools. If I weren't sort of a plasterer, my training strategy would be different.
So you've sort of it's been tailor fitted for spreads.
For me, yeah, for spreads, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. Awesome. Right, coming back to sleep, Richard Kirk's got a question for you here.
Yeah.
He says, is it correct that sleep is the only time when the body heals? Someone told him this. He just wanted to ask you. Is that right?
Where the majority of the healing comes from, yes, when you're in deep sleep. So again, this is really important because you can kind of go really granular with this. So as an example, if you drink 3 or 4 beers before bed, you're going to feel like you're asleep, but your body's awake. So by the question that's just been answered there, like, is it the only time you heal? Well, if you have those 4 beers and then you go to bed, your body's not asleep, so you're not healing. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think was it the sympathetic. I forget now how you,
Yes,
how you explained it
the
before.
parasympathetic is the rest and digest, and the sympathetic is the fight or flight. So what beer does, and again, I think sleep is so important. People don't really understand it. There's so many things that can affect sleep. So what happens with beer is when you drink, say, 2 or 3 beers in the evening, you're like, oh no, it's going to relax me, and it's actually sending me off to sleep. Yeah. Well, what happens is your body treats that beer as poison. So there's no other way to explain it. Your body, every single cell in your body goes, this is poison. So what happens is it kicks your central nervous system into the fight or flight state. Your body's going, fuck, we've got this fucking poison in us. We need to take care of it. And what it does is it sends your body into this fight or flight state. So your heart rate is elevated, your HRV will drop while your body is processing the poison. Now, when you're asleep on the beer, your body isn't, because it's processing this poison. So what that does is it doesn't give you access to your deep sleep and your REM sleep. And deep sleep is where we get the growth hormone release, the GH, which does all of the repairing of the muscles and so on.
Sure.
So I know that's quite a lot to digest, but basically,
no, it's helpful.
Yeah, if you when we think we're asleep, and we've had 3 or 4 beers, we're actually not asleep.
And caffeine, just touch on caffeine for me. Obviously, if we're caning coffees right up till 8 p.m., 9 p.m., it's a no-brainer. It's going to affect our sleep. But you also mentioned about how caffeine can sort of mess with the brain somehow, narrows the blood vessels or something.
Yeah, look, I'm a coffee drinker, so that's firstly what I'm going to say. I've got an issue with coffee. Like, I love coffee just like anyone else, right? So a couple of things with coffee. I want to try and give everyone stuff that they can really understand and use, because it's a massive topic. Firstly, what I would say is coffee restricts blood flow to the brain. So there's been a lot of studies around this, in the sense that one of the main promoters of Alzheimer's is a restriction of blood flow to the brain. Okay. So coffee does that. And to give you an example, when you come off coffee, if you drink coffee all the time, say, and you stop it for a day or two, you might get like a little headache. This is the blood vessels in your brain diluting. That's what's happening. They're dilating, sorry. So they're becoming bigger and swollen, and that's the feeling you get. So that's the first thing. The way we counteract the restriction of blood flow to the brain is via cardiovascular exercise, such as running and cycling. So that's one thing that's really interesting, something to be concerned about, let's say. Now, again, what coffee does is, as we know, it mimics stress. So let's put this into sort of real world context. So anyone that's watching this that's a spread or a tradesman that is stressed out already, that is, getting on the site at 7, leaving at 10 o'clock at night, when they get home and they go to sleep and they start their day with a coffee, particularly on an empty stomach, what that's doing is it is increasing cortisol levels. That's the first thing. Now, at this point, that tradesman that's working 7 till 10 at night, their nervous system is going to be fried anyway. Their NHS, central nervous system, CNS, sorry, is going to be cooked. So their nervous system is going to be stressed anyway. Now, when you add coffee on top of that, what coffee does is it sends your nervous system into that fight or flight state. So what this does is it adds extra stress on the nervous system, making us more fatigued.
Because you kind of crash as well, don't you? Because I'm a big coffee lover, and I mentioned to you, I've got a bad habit. I get up in the morning and I'll go straight to the espresso machine, a couple of sugars, and it kind of gives me a boost, but it's short lived. So
what's going on in
an hour and a half.
Yeah. So and this is the thing, right? Because I know exactly how you feel, Stuart. I know what that's like being like that. So what's important is when you know what's going on. When you drink coffee, you can make better decisions. So as I say, that person that is, getting on site for 7 o'clock and leaving at 10 o'clock, and that's kind of like an extreme example. when they're drinking coffee, their nervous system is fried anyway. By adding caffeine on top of that, it's frying it further. So, because all coffee does is it just blocks the receptors in the brain of the adenosine. Adenosine is what makes you feel tired. That's all caffeine does, really, that makes you feel good. That's why you feel good. But the other stuff that's going on with our nervous system, and I keep banging this drum because it starts and stops with the nervous system. It starts and stops with the central nervous system. It really does. Coffee, and again, what will happen as well when you're drinking coffee through the day, it will mess up your sleep. And when I say sleep, I'm talking about the deep and the REM stages of sleep, which is what makes you feel good and repairs your body and so on. So again, caffeine is prohibiting you from accessing deep and REM sleep if you drink a lot of it, particularly like after 2 o'clock.
Take notes, boys. Take notes on the caffeine, because that's just scared me. I need to cut down. That's
I think, like, the positive with that, look, the positive with coffee as well is, it's kind of an antioxidant as well. It acts as. So coffee's fine. If you just know what's going on. Firstly, as well, what I'd say with coffee is try to not drink any coffee for the first 2 hours of waking, and let your cortisol levels sort themselves out, because in the morning particularly we're really dehydrated anyway. Our body is flushed out of minerals. So what I would say, and what I do religiously, and I'll recommend everyone else to do this, to get those minerals back in your body, you want like 500 to 750 milliliters of water with some lime juice, fresh lime in there, and some Himalayan salt. So that's the first thing you want to do. And then have your coffee like 2 hours later upon waking. Don't just smash it straight away and rely on it. And then if you can as well, it's really bad to have coffee on an empty tummy. Because it just destroys your stomach lining. It's not good for it at all. So it's not all doom and gloom. Coffee, there are good things to it as well. Obviously, it helps us to talk a lot and chat up girls and toss the coffee or whatever it may be. Sometimes we need that, right? So
exactly. It's got its uses. It's got its uses.
Yes,
you've touched on hydration, and this is going to segue us beautifully into my next question, mate.
Yeah.
Let's talk about putting fuel in the tank. So we'll start with hydration. You've already kind of took the lid off this answer, but many lads, they think hydration means I'll drink more tea or I'll crush another can of Coke. We know we should be drinking water, but explain why sometimes even just water on its own isn't enough. What's a better way?
Yeah, so the image you're showing on the screen at the moment, this was where I had done a hit. I think it was the day before last. So this was just a normal day. It was that 10 metre square, 12 metre square ceiling I was plastering. It was only a little baby. I was literally just like whistling while I worked with this. And it worked out that I lost about 1.5 litres of water. When I say lost, I mean through sweat. Now, when we sweat, what comes out in those sweat are electrolytes, which are made of potassium, magnesium, and sodium. Now, in our body, in our blood, we have something called blood plasma. And blood plasma, pretty much 90% of it is made up of water. Okay. Now, we need electrolytes. We need the magnesium, the potassium, and sodium within those cells to make sure our blood plasma is high. Okay. Now, if our blood plasma is low, aka there's no electrolytes and just water, what that does to our blood is it makes it thicker.
Okay.
And subsequently, what has to happen is our heart has to beat harder to get that blood to all of our vital organs, our muscles and so on, our brain. And what that shows up as is fatigue and tiredness. So we're like, I'm so tired, like I'm absolutely exhausted. That's the first thing. So that's what dehydration shows up as, if you like. So what the myth, if you like, is I'm drinking 6 litres of water, I'm smashing water. Well, if you're not having that water with electrolytes, what you're actually doing is washing out more minerals from your body. You're washing out more electrolytes. And what happens is the cells within your body, if you like, that are transporting the oxygen to your muscles, what they basically do is they just become swollen.
Right.
So, yeah, again, it just translates into fatigue, headache, I feel crap. And ultimately, this is the definition of dehydration.
Well, Rich Brooks has just commented here. He says he only drinks coffee all day at work. And then on top of that, he will have cans of pop. So, I mean, this is like the absolute...
I've never heard of any spread that does that at all.
I'm guilty, you know. I'm laughing, but this is me as well, Rich. You know, I'll either drink tea or coffee all day, and then, you know, the afternoon slump will hit me, and I'll grab a can of Coke on the way home. So my habits are, you know, I'm a typical spread. You know, I don't look after myself. I don't drink enough water. So this is really interesting information.
But the other thing as well with that, Stu, just touching on that, which is really important for everybody to know, is like dehydration snookers your sleep. Again, if you're dehydrated, you don't sleep properly. So, and again, if getting access to that REM and deep sleep is critical, particularly when you get, you know, 40 plus. As you get older, you need that sleep. So if you're just drinking tea and coffee all day, I mean, you know, the numbers don't lie. We can sort of talk about this stuff from a theoretical point of view all day long. But the reality is if he's a spread, he's going to be losing shitloads of water when he's working. And he's losing all those electrolytes, meaning that his blood is becoming really thick. His heart is having to work a lot harder to pump that blood to his muscles and his brain to keep him alive. So the simple caveat to that is go to Sainsbury's, get yourself some water, like the 2 litres. You need it. This is a non-negotiable. And get some electrolytes, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned to you before that a number of years ago, I took part in a local wolf run in Stratford. And I trained with a buddy of mine, and we were caning lots and lots of water at work, and we replaced fizzy drinks, coffees, teas. This went on for about 3.5 months. We replaced all drinks with water. And what was magic about it is after about 6 weeks, all the niggles in my body, like the shoulder pains and the tennis elbow and the, you know, the lower back gripes, they just sort of disappeared.
Yeah.
And it was really, really interesting. I mean, you'd think I'd have learned, but I've sort of slipped back into bad habits again. But I just noticed it was incredible. So like I say, after 6 weeks of just drinking water every single day and eliminating sugars, caffeine, Coke, tea, coffee, it literally, all of my aches and pains just disappeared. It was crazy.
Well, one of the benefits of being hydrated properly is you get good sleep. So if you was getting access to deep sleep, if you had a wearable, that you would know about this, Stuart. If you was getting access to deep sleep, then you're getting access to shitloads of growth hormone, which was probably sorting out all of those niggles and aches and pains. Like you can buy growth hormone off the shelf. You know, I think it was Lionel Messi. Was it who played for Barcelona? Like he was with a kid, he had issues and he was injected with growth hormone. Like growth hormone is the fountain of youth, if you like. It's like there's a film called Death Becomes Her with
I remember that. Bruce Willis.
That is basically like kind of the theme around growth hormone. So you can see kind of all these dots are connected. If you, Stuart, were drinking lots of water and you're saying all of these niggles and stuff were going, compared to the guy that's just drinking a couple of cups of tea and coffee a day, the chances are the reason he's got the niggles is because he's not getting access to good sleep because he's dehydrated.
I didn't think of it like that. Makes a lot of sense. Lot of sense. Richard Kirk, he says that he started asking for squash at work instead of tea and coffees. Some private customers we'll just keep giving him coffees every hour all day long. Yeah, let's blame the customers. It's their fault, Rich. I know what you mean, because you know, especially if they're of an older generation, they look after you, and you know, the cup will still be half full. Would you like another one? And you're like, yes, please. And you know,
whenever someone says to me, "Do you want a tea or a coffee?" I just like every single job. I'm like, I don't drink tea or coffee. I'm like, really?
Yeah,
like, yeah, don't drink it. Because
maybe I could slowly make some changes and follow Rich's advice, ask for squash. So still getting a little sweet hit. It's not as boring as water. That's the problem with water. It's so bloody boring, isn't it? It's just tasteless.
The thing that's really important, like, again, I think it's really important to highlight, you need electrolytes. You have to buy electrolytes. You need the magnesium, the potassium, and the sodium to keep your blood plasma at a good level.
Noted.
That's really important. Water alone isn't going to do it.
All right. So coming on to food, what about food? You've covered hydration really well for everyone. What should us hard-working spreads be putting into our bodies to maximize performance on the trowel? And I'm guessing you're going to say not sausage rolls.
No, McDonald's breakfasts, bacon rolls, prawn cocktail, Walker's crisps. Don't get any other like the McCoy's ones. Prawn cocktails.
So that the meal deals off the table now.
Meal deals. Yeah, get the cheese and onion sandwiches, and you'll be golden for life. Right. Well, all that to one side. The reality is that we're talking about macros here, so this stuff's real common sense. And I guess I go back to the comment I made earlier. First, you make your habits, and then your habits make you. There's another old saying which we all know rings true: you are what you eat. Right. So if you're eating a McDonald's breakfast and a meal deal sandwich, you know, with a packet of prawn cocktail crisps, well, it isn't. You're not going to have access to the best version of yourself. So a real simple way to think of it is to keep things simple. You just want to try and get protein with every meal.
Yeah.
So when, again, with trades and specifically with plasterers as well, if I was talking to someone who was sitting in front of a computer, it probably wouldn't be, when I say sit in front of a computer, I'm talking like a desk job. It wouldn't be as important. But for us spreads or people that are on the tools, we are ripping muscle fibers all day. Yeah. If you're plastering a ceiling, you're up and down a hop up, carrying bags of plaster upstairs, buckets and so on, you're ripping muscle fibers. So what you need to repair those muscle fibers is protein. Specifically, there's like 9 amino acids that you need access to that are in protein. A particular one is called leucine. So what leucine does is basically it's like a trigger for your muscles to start rebuilding themselves.
Okay.
So what I would say is having protein, a good carb, good fats is absolutely essential so you can kind of repair and fuel properly. That's one thing with it. Because if you're not repairing properly, if you're just having like a bag of crisps and like a sandwich, there's no real nutritional value in that.
No. So, I mean, let's say most spreads are time poor. And this is half the battle, isn't it? We're so used to working against the clock. Yeah. And we're so used to, I wouldn't say rushing, but being really, really efficient with our time. Most spreads I know, they're kind of like me. They grab and go. So they will go for the meal deals or, you know, something fast and quick, drive through Mackey's, grab a sausage and egg muffin. That'll do for the day, you know, and then I'll just drink coffee. What can we kind of grab if, let's say, we pop into the co-op instead of grabbing the cheese and onion crisps and the Whisper bar and the, you know, the sausage roll? What's a good alternative that might be there that we can grab and go?
Yeah, so just coming back to protein. So Tesco's, they have got ready to eat drumsticks, like on the fly. Right. So there's your protein there. And also something carby, like I have tortilla de patata, which is like potato, onions and eggs. It's a Spanish omelette. So I would say go for the chicken. The other thing as well, which is really interesting with this type of food, proper food, wholesome food, such as chicken breast as an example, or drumsticks, is what it does is it kind of keeps your insulin levels nice and steady.
Yeah.
You have kind of this steady energy flow all through the day. Unlike, say, if you eat a sandwich and a bag of crisps and a Coca-Cola, you kind of spike your insulin levels. And then what they do probably about 2-3 hours later is they crash. And that's why you feel really fatigued. So, yeah, the answer to your question really is go to Sainsbury's. They've always got like the chicken thighs and tortilla di patata. Tesco, drumsticks, tortilla di patata.
Lovely. I'm going to try that. What about brekkie? Do you bypass brekkie, or is it porridge, or what do we do at breakfast time?
Yeah, so breakfast time again. I eat 6 eggs every day. So that gives me probably about 35 grams of protein in the morning. 6 eggs. 6 eggs every single day.
Give Rocky Balboa a run for his money, mate. 6 eggs.
Yeah, so 6 eggs, couple of bits of sourdough. Generally, I'll throw some salmon on that, or a couple of bits of mackerel with an avocado.
Lovely. And that's easy accessible, I suppose, from the
supermarket. Again, look, this is going back to kind of like, when we was first talking, Stu, and why did you start Brick Dust and Barbells? And we were talking about the analogy of the two guys with the vans looking after their body. 2 guys with the vans, one looks after them and one's don't. It's like some people do, some people don't. It's like, for me, my most valuable asset is my body. It's so unique. So I give it the protein and all that sort of stuff, and eat well, like the eggs, because I want my body to run the best it can, and I want access to the best version of myself, which I do have. I know what it feels like to not have that. So having these breakfasts and all this stuff now for me is just a habit. Like, I don't even think about it. I have these breakfasts pretty much every morning, the same breakfast, because it's a habit.
What's your stance on like supplements, protein shakes, all this kind of stuff? Is this something you would advise, or just stick to the organic grub?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a non-negotiable. Yeah, non-negotiable. Again, where supplements are concerned, I mean, this is a massive topic, but I want to try and keep this as simple as possible. Firstly, for everyone that's listening to this, they have to get a good multivitamin tablet. You have to get a good multivitamin tablet, a mineral tablet. One I'd recommend is Animal Pack. It's called Animal Pack. Now, this Animal Pack, when you buy these, if you see them, do you want me to go and get a pack and I'll show you just quick on the screen?
Yeah, go for it. I'm going to have a drink of water. So, yeah, go for it, mate. I'll just catch up on some of these comments. Good evening, Dan Canlin. I hope you're keeping well, brother. Hope you're all good. Rich Brooks, he has to make the kids pack lunches, so he makes his lunch at the same time. You're more disciplined than me, though, mate, and fair play to you. Eric Devalmancy, without your health, you have nothing. Amen to that, brother. Amen. Right, what we got, John?
So this is Animal Pack, right? So the equivalent of this is a multivitamin tablet you get in Boots, okay, which isn't worth sweet FA, if I'm honest with you. This is Animal Pack. These are multivitamin tablets and minerals. This is what they look like. Like, you get this. This is one sitting.
They're massive.
They are. That's what the missus says. Anyway, with that said, so in there are things like magnesium, B12, vitamin A, vitamin D, zinc, copper, all that stuff is in there. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. This company, Animal Pack, this has been going around since the 80s. So they're predominantly made for bodybuilders. Everything is in there. So when I say a multivitamin, people go, oh, darling, can you go to Boots and get me those multivitamin tablets? They're not worth anything. There's such little amounts of actual minerals and vitamins in them because, again, going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but the Food kind of administration, the people that regulate that in the UK, that there has to be a certain amount of anything in a tablet. So say a vitamin D tablet, right? This silver coin here, right? So if this is made up of 1% vitamin D, the government can say that whole thing is vitamin D.
Vitamin D.
Exactly. As just
That's
an
naughty.
example. So they're dog shit. The stuff you get in Boots and that is a waste of time. You have to get something like this. They don't advertise on the telly. They just rely on people like me, just sort of word of mouth. So where supplements are concerned, get yourself a good multivitamin, because this is kind of like the foundation of having good health. It's having good vitamins and minerals, because we are based on biology. We're a biological instrument. We're made up of cells. We're made up of water. Like, you can't get away from this stuff. So if you aren't getting the right supplements, then you're really cutting yourself short, and you're not giving yourself the best version of you. You're not giving yourself access to the best version of you. I mean, I can elaborate as well. I can go off on a tangent about other vitamins and minerals and why they're important in my stack.
Well, listen, save it for the next one, because I don't want to exhaust you on your first podcast. This is going to be a series, guys. Okay. This is the first of many series that John's going to be doing with Trowel Talk. And again, the series is called Stronger on the Tools. Today is to give you a general overview of everything that John covers inside Brickdust and Barbells, and just pour as much value out onto you as he can, because I can guarantee there'll be spreads listening to this right now, and it's going to get the wheels turning, and it's going to be food for thought, excuse the pun. So tonight's session is to give you guys an overview of everything that he can cover to help you guys, and we're going to do more episodes. You touched on vitamin D there. I heard you mention vitamin D. Spreads that are working predominantly on domestics inside all year round. We're lacking in this, aren't we? Big time.
Oh, mate. Oh, my God. There's a guy called Gary Becker, and Gary Becker is an American guy, and he used to work for a private healthcare company in the States. So unlike the UK, when we want to get private healthcare, right, what they do in the States is they want to get a test. They want to test your bloods. So if you was to phone up and say, hey, you know, I want, you know, what's the word? You don't want to get off the NHS. You want private healthcare. You phone them, so I want private healthcare. They go, okay, Stuart, we're going to send you out a test. We want to see your bloods, and then we'll give you the premium for how much it costs you for your private healthcare. So what Gary Becker's job was, when he got those results back, they would obviously check their vitamins, their vitamin and mineral levels in their blood. And what he could tell within a year of how long you would have to live from the age you are now by your vitamin and mineral levels. It's that important. So he could tell, as an example, if you was deficient in vitamin D, he could tell how that was going to tax your lifespan. So vitamin D, as an example, what that basically does, it acts more of a hormone than an actual vitamin. And what it basically does is it regulates all the other hormones. That's the first thing. And we don't get enough access to vitamin. Vitamin D is a non-negotiable. We need it. The trouble with it as well is we don't get access to vitamin D, particularly in the UK, because we're indoors. And this is a massive problem for our health. Pretty much, I would say, 9 out of 10 people listening to this are going to be vitamin D deficient. It is a massive problem.
Eric's just said we are all lacking in vitamin D3.
Need vitamin D, D3. The other caveat to that as well, and this is something else I discovered via Gary Becker, is we need a vitamin called K2 to go with vitamin D, and these guys work together in unison. And what K2 does is it redirects the calcium that's circulating in your blood and pushes it to the right places, such as your bones and teeth. Because if you don't get K2, what it does is it gets lodged in places like the arteries and in your joints, which contributes to arthritis. You can thank me later.
Noted again. And guys, please take some notes on this stuff, because this is gold. The stuff that John's sharing with you now is absolute gold. John, before you go, we're running out of time here, mate. We're creeping way past 8 p.m. now.
Okay.
I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I've got one more question for you.
Yeah.
If that's okay, mate. I won't take up too much more of your time. You speak about tracking performance and the importance of wearables, which you touched on earlier.
Yeah.
And you mentioned like heart rate and other key numbers. I know that you're big on these wearables and tracking your metrics. What do spreads need to know about wearables? And have you got one that you can recommend they get started with?
Yeah, very quickly. First thing I want to say is if you've got a tattoo, a full sleeve tattoo, the wearable won't work on that tattoo because the light that comes out of them, there's like this little green light that actually measures your heart rate and so on if you're training. So this is really useful, by the way, because if there's a spread listed, so this is covered in tattoos, like this little green light kind of flashes, and it doesn't work for tattoos. So that's the first thing I want to say. One I would recommend, a wearable, it's dependent on what you're doing. And what I mean by what you're doing is if you're just interested in metrics such as sleep, tracking sleep, tracking kind of your body battery, which is kind of how recharged you are in the morning, then a Whoop band is great. Whoop are kind of like superior in the area of tracking HRV and heart rate. The downside to it is they are really expensive. They're like 20 quid a month.
Okay.
Every month, like forever. A Garmin is a better alternative, particularly for me, because Garmin's are more aimed at people that are training, so running in the gym, cycling, and they do all of the other stuff as well, such as tracking HRV, tracking heart rate, and they're just a one-off payment, and they track all of those metrics. So to start with, I would say get yourself a Garmin. That would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Dan's just said, Dan Canley's just said he's ordering one now. Fantastic. And Mark Neeson's off to order some.
Get the Phoenix 8 if you can. They're only £1,000.
Straight from the horse's mouth. Mark Neeson's off to order some multivitamins. He's already got K2 and D3. Well, try the animal pack, Mark. Try the animal. Have you got a link that you could bash into Trowel Talk, John?
Yes, mate.
For the Garmin.
I get one from Dolphin Fitness, in the UK. Dolphin Fitness, they're absolute concrete. I've been getting them there for years.
Fantastic. Are we going to wrap up? John, if you could give a spread listening to this now, he's out of shape, okay? Yeah. He's low energy, he's running on empty, he's feeling it. He's got pains every day, he's popping ibuprofen, he's not an happy bunny. What would your advice be to him? Like, what a couple things he can change? I mean, you've covered a hell of a lot of ground this evening, which I really appreciate, and I'm sure the spreads listen and appreciate. But you know what it's like. You can take this information in, and then you can go and stick on another podcast and forget about it. But what's something easy that he can do? Just one or two things, just to start making some small changes that's going to help him and impact his health and just improve his life.
So what I would say firstly is the things that are easy to do are easy not to do.
Very true.
So if I was to say one thing that's impacted me in a positive way, like beyond words can explain, it is quitting alcohol.
Right.
That's the first. That's what I would say.
Total quit or just wean down or completely eliminate it?
Just totally quitting, to be honest with you, because, if you're just drinking like once a week, that is robbing you. Particularly, like, so if some people listen to this and they're 20 and 30, we know what it's like being 20 and 30, right? We're just we're going out with our friends and chasing girls. But with your scenario, if there's a spread that sat there and he's really out of shape and he's struggling, with everything that goes with that, getting jobs and the pressure and alcohol is not doing him any favors at all. It's kind of like a crutch. I think a lot of people use it as a crutch, particularly spreads or tradesmen that are plastering, because it kind of just covers up the pain and it just gives us that escapism for a few hours. So for me, when I got really serious, when I was, going back to the beginning of this podcast, when I said I got tired of being tired, I was like, I can't literally afford to drink beer anymore. And when I stopped drinking beer, that was kind of the one thing that really just changed everything for me. But the thing with that, you know, again, I keep saying this, but you know, first you make your habits, then your habits make you. We live in this society, it's really difficult to just stop drinking beer, because I went out to the in-laws the other day, you know, Saturday, 2:00, we're all sat around the table. It's like, what do you want? They're like, oh, I have a Guinness. What do you want? I have a Moretti. Come round to me. I'm like, I have a soda water and lime. They're like, what? Yeah, we'll get you a Guinness. My sister turned up. She brought me 2 pints of Guinness when I wasn't drinking. So there's 2 pints of Guinness in front of me or whatever. So going off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I would say the one thing, if it's just one thing, it's to quit alcohol.
That's brilliant advice. And it's also that, like you mentioned, this societal pressure, because then you've got to kind of justify why you're not drinking, haven't you? In these, you know, if you've spent 20 years using booze to socialize, and then all of a sudden,
look, this comes for me again. So personally, it's like when the shit hits the fan, and your fucking back goes because you haven't got access to good sleep because you've been smashing beers all the time, and the societal pressures, as you put it. Are these people that are buying your beers going to pay for your fucking mortgage? You're going to phone up and go, Barry, you know, we was drinking beer the other night. You know, you bought me all that beer. Can you pay for mortgage? Like, piss off. Like, no. So the reason I say that is from like just my personality and the way I'm personally wired. If someone like that scenario where they're like, come on, get a beer, I was like, no. Like,
would you say it's harder for? Would you say it's harder for spreads and builders and roughy tufty tradesmen? Because
I would say younger spreads, yeah,
younger. There is a culture. I mean, you've touched on this in your podcast again. Yeah. Giving your podcast a good plug. Brick Dust and Barbells, guys, on Spotify. If you like what you're hearing tonight, or you catch it on YouTube, go check out Brick Dust and Barbells. John's got loads of sessions like this where he's giving out this kind of information. But you briefly touched on like a culture that's rife across TikTok and spreads like smashing pints. We won't name any names, but we've got spreads, you know, and these guys are role models to the next, to the new blood, to the young lads that are coming up. And, you know, they've got a big following, a lot of these guys. And the culture is, look how many pints I can crush. And, you know, he's a guy in his 40s. He's no young man. And it's kind of sending out the total wrong message, isn't it? For newbies.
Again, it comes back, you know, we're doing full circle with the van analogy. You know, as I said on my podcast as well before, you know, I had a contract in place with a care home. It was 3 months. It was a national care home in the UK. And I was at loads of different care homes here in Essex. I was going to different care homes all the time. There wasn't one resident, I used to call them residents. There wasn't one resident I saw that was overweight, without exception. And I'm not just saying that to be controversial. There was not one overweight resident. One of the side effects, if you like, of alcohol is it will increase body mass, such as fat. That's one of the big downsides to it. So, you know, when you're in your 20s and your 30s, I mean, look, I only really quit alcohol maybe, what are we now? So probably it was June that I really just was like, I'm done. And we're September now. So, but even before that, I was only flirting with alcohol. So I'd only drink maybe once a month, you know, once or probably once every other week, say. So the people, the kids and stuff that are under pressure, when I say kids are 20 to 30-year-olds, like you've got to go through that. But I think there's just, when you get this internal voice that says, I just can't deal with that hangover tomorrow. Like, and then subsequently how you feel after that, it's kind of like it's a no-brainer for me. And then when you start tracking with the wearable what alcohol is actually doing to your body and your HRV and your nervous system, and you see the numbers, which I've got something on my YouTube channel that talks about this. I show the numbers. Like, it just falls off a cliff. Like, my HRV, it becomes unbalanced. It just absolutely snookers you. So
Your dad's right. And Dan Canlins, he's just commented. He says he's just got back from Ibiza. He felt shite every morning. He's been back for 3 days and he still feels like shit. He says that he's having a good break from the beer and he's never felt so shite, in his words here. I mean, yeah, that's not good enough reason to at least have a break from it and take note of some of the stuff John's talking about. And you give it a few more days. This is the problem as we start to age. I know that you're mostly speaking to spreads in their 40s, and you just cannot get away. You cannot get away with this behaviour.
If I was listening to this, Stu, if I was like 20 or 30 listening to this, and I was listening to myself, I'd be like, I'll go and crack. I'll probably be listening to this with a bottle of Peroni in my head. Because I used to smash through. I used to get go to the offie. I'd get 4 packs of Peroni, so 8 Peronis. I'd smash those. They would go like that. And then I'd end up going on Deliveroo and then ordering another 8. And then I'll be getting a taste. So the reason I say that is because the younger lads that are watching this are just going to be like, ah. But when you hit 40, I think you kind of get a sense for your mortality. So for me, I'm coming towards like my mid 40s now. I can't afford to smash 12 Peronis every other night like I used to. I mean, I've had my fair share of beer. I've been drinking beer since I was 14, and a lot of it, from that period of time. So, I think with the younger lads, they've got to go through that process. But when you kind of hit your 40s, that's when, the mortgage, kids, the missus, the car, you're like, oh, hang on a second. You get that pain or that twinge in your wrist. It's just flashing. Hang on a second. I've got to look after this because I can't come home to the missus and she's like, where's that cheddar? You're like, sorry.
I mean, about my lower back issues that I've had. And luckily, it's on the mend. But it's scary. I mean, it's scary. I mean, when I mentioned before, some years back, I tore my trapezius muscle. And every winter it comes back to bite me in the arse and it plays up. But the lower back, over the last couple of weeks, it's not been right. And I have been, you could argue I've been overdoing it a bit. I've been hitting it hard on the tools and then digging out, trying to level my back garden with a pick. And the body said no, it just stopped. And it's not the sort of back pain where it's like a dull headache in the bottom of your back. It was like a nerve. I'd have like shooting pain when I made sudden movements. I thought it could have been sciatica, but the missus is a nurse. She's like, no, it's not. But it's here. It's better. It's healed. But it is scary when you're self-employed and you're using your body as a machine, essentially, to put bread on the table, and then the machine just stops. Or it's, squeaking and making funny noises. You can't replace it. It's not like you can go and get a new part and swap it out. So it's so important. This topic is so important. But
see, the thing as well is like, again, we kind of as well live in this society where, we'll try to, cure is better than prevention, I feel. So, like going back, and if this wasn't true, builders and tradesmen wouldn't run their van into the ground, then fix it when it goes wrong. And this is the same with everything. When you don't go to the dentist generally until you get a toothache. Like, when was the last time I went to the dentist? People watching this.
It's true.
So, and it's the same with our body. We kind of just all of this stuff. It's really easy because it can be quite overwhelming. All of the stuff that I've been talking about. People go, "Yeah, what a load of nonsense." Potentially, some are like listening, but it's really easy to kind of put it to one side because it can be a little bit overwhelming. But the consequences of that are such things as a serious back pain, and you've got to ask yourself as well, like I do all the time, is what does your life look like when you're 60, 70, 80 off the trowel? Do you want to have a life off the trowel? So, and they're the questions I ask myself and why I do all of this stuff. But the caveat to that as well is if you do the stuff that kind of we've been touching on this evening, you're going to feel good today as well. You're going to have access to a better version of yourself. You're going to look better and you're going to think sharper.
So good. It reminds me of a conversation I had with Eric de Valmency on a previous podcast. He's big into his fitness, and he says, "Listen, if I'm going to drop dead, I want to drop dead running down the street as fast as I can. I don't want to be a bent up old man suffering and struggling to go to the toilet. I want to be, able to be fit, strong, and, operating at my maximum and then die.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it was a good way.
We see the videos, Stuart, don't we? You can see them on, the choice. There's I think it's becoming quite popular now, kind of, I think, particularly, when I was growing up in kind of the 90s, the early noughties, it was all around clubs and beer and everything that went with that. But I think today, the kind of this generation that's coming through, there isn't so many clubs and people are kind of gravitating more towards kind of the gym life.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a culture shift for sure compared to when we were 20, 100%.
Yeah.
Listen, John, I've took up a lot of your time this evening. Again, very much appreciated, mate. Where do you see Brick Dust and Barbells going? I know you've got like a load of downloadable PDFs. You've built your community group. You've got your podcast. Yeah. People can check you out, on YouTube. But what's the plan? Are you looking to do more one-to-ones with people? Like where are you moving to? I know it's early days at the minute.
Yeah,
it's like launch time at the minute, but where do you see Brick Dust? Sorry, I can put my teeth back in. Brick Dust and Barbells. Where's it going, mate?
I think where it's going is just to help as many tradesmen as possible that are over 40, because as I said at the beginning of this, my mate who passed away, and 2 people that took their own lives. There's nothing out there that I can find to genuinely help tradesmen. Going to the gym and lifting weights or going for a run around the block isn't going to solve the problems that are going on out there. So Brick Dust and Barbells has kind of been born from that kind of philosophy, if you like. And I think where it's going is I think people are going to kind of join me on this tribe, this journey, that subscribe to the values of Brick Dust and Barbells, which is ultimately to rebuild your body, your mind, and your mission. And with that, I'm going to be kind of listening to what people are telling me as we go along that journey, because this isn't a dictatorship. This isn't about me, Brick Dust and Barbells. I know everyone's here for themselves. No one cares about me. No one cares that I've got no hair and, I stink. No one cares. They care about themselves, and I totally appreciate that. Brick Dust and Barbells is about the tradesman. It's not about me. And ultimately, they're going to be shaping what it's going to be turning into over the future months and years.
And with that said, mate, I just want to say thank you so much again for your time. How can people get hold of you, John?
Yeah, just head over to brickdustbarbells.com. That's brickdustbarbells.com. You've got access there to get access to the Facebook group, which is kind of really thriving. I'm quite surprised how it's taken traction so quickly. So I would say get in that group to start with. You get access to me, ask questions, specifically like even this podcast or the podcasts that I've got out there at the moment. So yeah, head to brickdustbarbells.com, get into the Facebook group to sort of find out more if you like.
John, you're going to help a lot of people, mate, and it's an extremely important message, a very important message. And I'm excited to get you back on for episode 2, which we've got in the pipeline over the hill. So, guys, thank you again for joining on the live chat this evening. It's been fantastic. It's been a really interactive and positive podcast, successful podcast. And I can tell that this is going to be an ongoing thing. And we've got lots more to impact when it comes to looking after your bodies and eating right, sleeping right. And John's the man to go to for this kind of advice. So if you haven't already done so, go and join his free community group on Facebook. Check out his podcast. And if you want to talk to John on a one-to-one basis, I'm sure he wouldn't mind you reaching out onto his community group. You can put a post out there or tag him in and have a chat with him personally. So, John, thanks again, brother. And you have yourself a good evening, mate. And I look forward to our next chat.
All right, bud. Cheers, Stuart.
Cheers, John. Take care, guys. All the best. Mate.